All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to another Wheel Tapping. We are getting back to form after a couple special episodes, and we are going to be talking about 1822. But wait a second, Tony, we already talked about 1822. So, let me introduce Tony and let's start there. So, how you doing, Tony?
Hey, I'm doing great on this fine Saturday morning in Denver, Colorado.
Excellent.
And yeah, we did talk about 1822 already. You know, one of our favorite titles, you and I. But today we're going to revisit it a little bit, but also add in the input and viewpoints of the designer of the game, Simon Cutforth.
Thank you very much. I'm very well. Yeah, excited to be here.
Excellent. So Tony and I. We were able to get a hold of Simon through various means, and not nefarious, just various. He offered to come on the show. So we said, yeah, we absolutely want to revisit 22. But we're going to do a light primer on 22. We're not going to spend too much time. So if you want to hear that, go back to that episode. And maybe that'll be a good afterthought to this one, because this is really about Simon 22 and what it's become, because it's outgrown. It's outgrown. It's not just Great Britain anymore, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So let's see. Let's pull up our notes here. And so again, we're talking about 22. This is designed by Mr. Simon Cutforth, and it's just wrapping up pre-order now on All Aboard Games. So you can still get on board. You can still get all the goodness that is in that one box. It is a great all-day game, one that we have obviously shown a lot of love for. So highly recommend checking that out. So let's get on to the initial auction. So let's see. What we have here today is some questions and a little chat with Simon, and Tony put together some great questions. So Tony, why don't you lead us out here?
Yeah, for sure. I would like to start by just giving Simon a chance just to introduce himself and tell viewers a little bit about himself. You know, where he lives. We know you're somewhere in the UK, across the pond. What do you do for a living? That kind of thing. So, Simon.
Okay, so I live in I live just outside Exeter in a tiny little village. So Exeter is where Minor Company 22 lives, down in the bottom left-hand corner of England. We live 5 miles from the sea, so I like to whiz out and kayak on the sea occasionally. And we thank you. and we live near Dartmoor, so I like walking and a little bit of mountain biking, a little bit of cycling. So that's what I do when I'm not playing 22,
Awesome.
Which I haven't played for a long, long time. I'm a project manager in the construction industry, so I do have to go to work to earn a living, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There you go. What else do you need to know?
Awesome.
Married. Photo behind me of me and the family.
Nice.
So
So I have the map up. Where exactly are you down here? Like,
So if you see,
There you
so
all right.
yeah, well, I'm at 5 o'clock maybe bang on your red line at 5 o'clock from Exeter.
Awesome.
We'll make it a Q. All right. Excellent.
That's where I am.
So one of the things I don't know about the UK is territories, right? Like we have states and you have counties, correct? So what county are you in? Is that?
So that's Devon.
Devon? Okay.
So Devon. So yeah.
All right.
I'm just looking at it. So I guess all the way from where I am over to the Cornwall off-board area. That's Devon.
Excellent.
Okay.
So there you go. So we could actually, I like that we could use the actual map to show where the designer lives. I think that's fabulous.
Lovely. We should do that in every future episode. Like, there has to be a map that you're on somewhere.
That's fine, unless you want to start talking about 22 CA or 22 Max.
Yeah, then you get a problem.
And then I can't quite point to myself.
Fair enough. There's just a little offboard for you. It's like,
Yeah, right.
I did a redraw of the 18 Chesapeake map for myself before it was available, and I put a little star where my house was. It's not a did or anything, but it's there. It's there.
Yeah.
Cool.
So Simon, what started your journey into playing 18xx games?
So I started playing games probably when I was a teenager. War games mainly. Role-playing games, I suppose, when I was a teenager. And then when I was a student, I discovered board games and started going to conventions probably in the 1980s. And I was at a convention, I guess it was in the late 1980s, and a group of guys grabbed me over to their table to make up the numbers at a game of 1830. So it's when it had just been released by Avalon Hill.
That's one way to get sucked in.
Yeah, they needed a fourth person, so that well, they didn't need it, but they wanted a fourth person. I walked past at the opportune moment, got dragged into it. Had not the faintest idea what was going on, as you don't when you've never seen 18xx before.
True.
But liked it, and over the years gradually played more and more. I suppose it's been a gradual ramping up of my love of 18xx over other games. It was probably, I don't know, the mid-90s before I would say I was a fan of the 18xx genre.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there weren't very many games to choose from in those days.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when and how did that transform into designing 18xx games?
It's crazy. I was in the shower, just mulling over games and stuff, and thinking, I like this bit of this game, I like that bit of this game, and it came to me that what I should do is take all my favourite bits and stick them together.
That is not the first time we've heard that on this program.
Right.
I have to say, that seems to be a design ethos, present company included, both of you guys, I think, taking your favorite things and combining them. That's fun. I like that.
It's cheating.
Yes.
I mean, one of the things I've said in the back of the 22 rulebook is there's not much in there that is an original concept. The innovation comes in the way all the different bits are being glued together.
Sure.
So the thought that I like these bits and I want to put them together, that's what I do in the shower, because that only takes 5 minutes to think about what you'd like to do. Mm-hmm. But then working out how to make it happen and all the nitty-gritty details, you get that from playtesting, but I do most of that when I'm cycling. So I cycle along, working out what would happen if this happened, what would happen if that happened. Oh, so I need to put that in the rules, or So that's deeper thought on a particular issue as I'm cycling. So those are the two forums for game development that I rely on.
Question. Awesome. So how do you I find I get creative at moments when your left brain's engaged, right? Like when you're driving, when you're cycling, when you're doing something that's kind of on autopilot and your brain's free to be creative. Yeah. How do you capture that? Like, for instance, I remember a lot of great things in those moments, but then I'm not able to translate that. Do you have a way to take care of that?
No. While I'm cycling. I think because I think of an issue for a couple of hours while I'm going around. When I get back, I've thought about it so much that it lodges in my mind for long enough for me to get it down on paper, even if that's a day or two later.
That's a much more focused mind than mine. Mine's very scatterbrained. I'm all over the place when I get creative. It's annoying as anything. I was just wondering if you had a trick.
No, just focusing on one thing.
There you go. That's
this
the
is
trick.
This is going to sound weird, but let me finish the sentence. I'm imagining Simon in the shower, but hurrying, getting out of the shower immediately, drying off and everything, just so he can get his notes written down. Because
it's a true problem, right? And there's ways. There's wet notes. There's maybe voice notes or something like that to help maybe trigger, if you went down a certain path. So that's why I was wondering.
I haven't done any of that. I've just relied upon my memory. And if I don't remember what I was thinking of, then I'll think of the same thing again in 2 weeks when I'm on another bike ride. So it'll come back to me.
awesome.
Good on you.
Yeah, 1822 started taking shape, and you started putting things down. And about how long of a process from, let's say, the shower to some play testing?
So I didn't actually make a note of when I first started thinking about it, but the earliest file I've got on my hard drive is from 2010. So at that point, it was taking some sort of shape, and I spent probably 4 or 5 years bashing it into shape, and then a year or so polishing it, and then gave it to Scott, and he spent another year polishing it before I think it was published in 2016, wasn't it? So yeah.
Was Great Britain always the focus from the start?
No, I started in Cardiff and Wales and the coalfields there. So where the famous piece of track around Merthyr Tydfil is, that's where the game started, and it just expanded slightly.
Okay.
More slightly, yeah. So I couldn't make it work in Wales.
Yeah.
And I spoke to Mike Hutton probably a year ago, because he's just developed a game, hasn't he? Published, I don't know what state it's in, based in that spot. And he said he's cheated to make it work, but he's made it work. So yeah. That's a sign of a quality designer rather than somebody like me who just copies other people.
Awesome.
Simon, during these pandemic times and lockdowns and openings and wave twos and everything, have you gotten any gaming done online? Have you ever played any board games, 18xx games, whatever, online?
So yeah, I've been playing online since 2015, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Bob introduced me to Cyberboard so that I could play 22 when we were just giving it to Scott to polish. Okay. So he set up a game box on Cyberboard, and then a few years of playing various 18xx games on Cyberboard, we discovered Board 18, and I've been using Board 18 since then. Last night was my first ever encounter with Tabletop Simulator, and I wasn't impressed. I found it very clunky, but it's a first experience, so that's maybe a bit unfair to talk it down, but I wasn't impressed. But yeah, I've been using Board 18 for 2-3 years.
Cool.
Right.
So
have you tried that? Have you tried that new site, 18xx.games?
No, I haven't. That's Toby's good site.
Yeah.
I looked at it when 1889. That was the first one he did, wasn't it? I looked at it when that first came out, and I thought, "Oh, that looks very promising. I'll have to go back to that." And I know he's been adding other titles, but I haven't looked at it since. So it's on my, it's on the horizon as something awesome. I need to look at. But yeah, not looked at now.
Awesome. Um, just random weird questions here, but in your hometown, what's your go-to restaurant and dish?
Wow, that is a random question.
Not that you could actually go get it anymore, right?
Yeah.
No. So we were allowed to go out to restaurants. We've been allowed to go out recently, the last few months. And I've been out for one Thai meal and one Moroccan meal, which are both very nice.
Mm.
And then there's the pub in the village serves basic food, which is convenient and it's all right. So yeah, Thai food is my favourite. And
Awesome.
there's a reasonably good Thai restaurant in Exeter. So that's good.
You like it spicy?
Yes.
Nice.
But it's controlled with coconut and lime, so the spice isn't bad.
Yeah. Exactly. Cool.
Awesome. So you did mention that, you have been a gamer for a long time. Not just in the 18XX genre, but if just off the top of your head, do you have like 2 or 3 favorite just games in general, no matter what kind they are?
Do you want my top 5 18XX games?
If you would like. I mean, it didn't.
So my top 5 games would all be 18XX.
Okay. So fair.
my top 10 would all be 18XX. Maybe by the time I get down into 20, I could. No, that's not true actually, because I like Civilization. I might put that in my top 10.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have a current favorite title that you really enjoy? Not your own.
Not my own. 1880 is very good. 18 OE I like, although it's a bit large. 1867. It's difficult to to know.
You're in good company because all those hit. Yeah, well, aside from OE, Tony's, they hit our warm spot. 80 is a personal favorite, so.
Yeah, I think that's probably my favorite. Yeah.
Cool.
I had just one more question. Is there anything you'd like to share that we didn't know to ask about Simon Cutforth?
Well, just an opportunity to plug the next game.
Ooh.
Okay. Cool. Well, I definitely want to ask you about the next game. That's for sure. So,
yeah,
hold on to that.
Yeah, we're gonna tease that then and hang that till the end.
Make sure people stay on for the entire
exactly.
Podcast. Yeah. Okay. I'll say no more about it. Is there anything else you need to know about me? Probably don't need to know.
Yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. And I think, more is going to come out as we kind of progress here a little bit, because we're going to move on to the yellow phase, which, let's just kind of hunker down and get into 22, get into the meat of that process. I mean, we already talked about, the bike riding design club and everything. So, let's kind of get this. So what motivated you to kind of make 22 and just keep at it? Like, I mean, obviously you wanted a game with your bits, but 5 years is a lot of time to kind of really devote to one project like that. So what kept you coming back to the pie?
It is a long time. When you ask the question like that, I don't know it. You question the sound. I guess I just wanted to make it work. I started with the premise that I'll speak badly about 1830 again. The problem I have with 1830 is not that there's anything wrong with the game, is that many people have played it many times and know absolutely what to do. And there's a right way to lay the double dip tile just next to the B&O start hex. I can't even remember that. But there's a right way of doing it, there's a wrong way of doing it, and it's that kind of structured, kind of fixed way of playing that puts me off that game. And so I was trying to get something that was far more variable. So there's not a right thing to do. You can't plan in advance. You've got to deal with the situation you're given. And it doesn't really level the playing field between experienced and inexperienced players, because an experienced player of 1822 will still beat an inexperienced player because they'll understand the implications of everything. But it means that if you've played 100 games or 10 games, you're probably able to compete. Whereas I play a game of 1830 and I've probably played it 10 or 20 times, and I'll be playing against somebody who's played it 500 times and I'll get slaughtered.
Yes.
Which is fine. So I really wanted to make it work as a game that was variable, and I just kept on plugging away at it. And people who tried it said that it was a good system and they liked it. So I thought, okay, well, it's positive feedback, really. They were telling me that it was quite good. So I thought, okay, let's see if we can make it work. So I just kept plugging away because I wanted the game to exist, and I was being given positive feedback about its development.
Yeah. That variability is something I really appreciate and enjoy about 1822, because the way the privates come out, the way the minors come out, the concessions that are initially available, all those things, and this is why an experienced player is going to beat an inexperienced player too, right? Even because of the variability, is those things create all these synergies and different timings, and the experienced player will understand that more, But to me, that's one of the great aspects of 1822 is that variability, and that it takes that scripting out to a large degree. Yeah.
You don't feel like you could have lost the game after the auction is over, right?
And that is another big thing. I mean, there are games where the auction is very, very important. And in 1822, the auction is very important, but there are so many of them that each one is less important. And the first time you sit down to play it, you don't know what you're doing, and you sit through the first auction, and then you have an operating round, and you sit through the second auction. And it's
no, you don't. You spend all your money on the first two, and then you sit through the next four because you didn't make enough revenue. That's
a pitfall.
It is. The auction aspect is something I also really dig, because I love auction games, Euros and stuff like that. You talk about like 1830, that like waterfall kind of auction is a bit unsatisfying for me because I love auctions so much. And in 1822, I mean, there's auctions galore, right? And then in each of the auction boxes, the bid boxes, depending on what's in there, of course, and the situation at hand, could be very competitive. And I love it. I think the auctions, they tend to try to, in 1822, they try to break a truism of 18xx games where, I think that in a stock round, you should spend as much of your money as you can safely spend on stock, right? Because it's not going to earn you any money sitting in your hand.
No, absolutely.
And in 22, you might want to save some money.
Right, because that next private that's sitting on the stack that's about to come out is the one you want, not the one that's out.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
That's just something that fell out as a design of the design. That particular let's hold on to your money because you're going to need it later. That's just an accident. But the way the auctions are spread, that was deliberate to take the importance of each auction away to a point.
Now,
spread them out. Spread out the importance.
So what was the inspiration for the actual auction mechanism? Because it feels very Vegas Showdown to me, kind of how once you're on a thing, you can't leave a thing. You only have X amount of bids to place, those kind of mechanics. I love that style of auction. I don't even know the name for it. Like, I don't know what the specific, I just know I've seen it in other things.
I call it a Lawsonian auction because I stole it from Chris Lawson and Steve Thomas's 1848, which is yet to be published. But 20 years ago when I first played it, I thought, I like this.
Okay.
So, I stole it from there and I call it a Lawsonian auction. The number of bid cubes you get is the only thing that I have to think about, really. There's 10 items to bid on. How many cubes does each player get?
Right.
And that was difficult to know what the right number is. I think I got the right number, but maybe if everybody had got one more, or I think one less would be gruesome, but one more might work.
Well, I think the addition of the one, where you live right now with it is it's enough where people can get the things that they want and also drive up bids so that other people can't get stuff too cheap. And that balance is, that tension is there every time we play. And there's always that guy, everybody's got him, right? Just driving up the bids like, nope, you can't get the Pullman for that. That's not happening. And he just keeps plunking cubes on there.
I've got no intention of doing it myself, but if you want to win it, and that's exactly right. And if you had more bidding cubes, the process might just get bogged down. So the fact that you can only you want to bid on 5 of them, but you've only got 4 cubes, that adds quite a lot of difficulty as well, and that's deliberate.
Love it.
Well, in talking about all this interactivity in the auctions, Chris, you just said you're not getting that Pullman that cheap. I think that 1822 has several innovative private companies too that go up for auction, and so I want to talk about a couple of them, but for Simon, I feel bad because you had to, come up with a whole list of private companies. Yeah. It's not just 5 or 6.
And you're not just retreading. Oh, this is the B&O. Oh, this is, it's like we're not just retreading them.
But when I was coming up with those list of privates and thinking, what powers would be interesting to put in, actually I've cut them down to put them in. I didn't have to stretch myself to think, I need one more, and what will it be? I was thinking, I've got this list. Which are the best ones? Now, don't ask me what the ones that got cut were. But there were ideas, and they did get cut.
Well, let's talk about a couple of the ones that really appeal to me. I think these are the really, and Simon, please add in other ones that you think are innovative. And I think these were innovative to me, to my mind and experience, the permanent 2 train that you can treat the money differently. I mean, that one's really cool, highly sought. It always goes at a decent price in the auctions. I think that one's really cool.
I worry that in hindsight, I worry that there's only 2 in the game, and that 2 is perhaps too few, and maybe there should be 3 of them.
You heard it here, people. Print and play. Go ahead, make more. Put them in there. Have fun. Official variant.
I really would not want them to be 2 available because they are powerful, and that pushes the price up. But I mean, the thing with that is people say if you've got a 2p in your company, you'll win the game. But the way I see that is if you've got a 2p in your company, people will buy your shares, and then you'll get screwed over because it's a partial cap game, and having your shares sold isn't very good.
Yeah, right.
And they'll all be benefiting as well. So, there's ways of combating people who own a 2p.
For sure.
Tony, what's the next one?
The 5p, the 5 train, not a 5p, the 5 train.
Yeah.
That also goes, very, very expensive usually in our games, and
Yeah.
and
it's always the first one because it's the least.
always the first
useful.
one, right? I
That's-
think that's important because that's when everybody has cash.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I didn't put it in first because it's when everybody has cash. I put it in first because it is the most useless at the start of the game.
It is because
So
it pays
it
goose egg.
was bloody-mindedness that that it's first.
Yeah, but that ability to just kind of bang, open a concession late in the game and just start running out of the gate with a permanent is
No backward stop movement.
Nope.
Yeah.
It's a thing of beauty.
Yes, you got to time it right, but yeah.
Yeah. The next one on my list, I don't actually like.
I was wondering why I was here.
The Highland Railway.
That's the best one.
Well, it's the broken one.
It's powerful.
It's very powerful. It's very powerful. Right. Yeah. So, is there any, like, how did that come to be? I'd never seen a private like that before.
As I say, I was dreaming up ideas for what interesting powers you can have, and that popped into my mind from somewhere, and I thought that's a good idea. I like that.
Awesome.
And then I know it's powerful. So in 1822, there's the half-baked version. 1822 plus. There's the half-baked version, which is toned down a bit, and I think that makes it less interesting because it's so good. It's like the 2Ps and the 5 train. It pushes the bidding up. There are plenty of privates that people will be reluctant to pay more than 10 for.
Sure.
And there are privates that people want to pay over 100 for, and that's good.
Tony, can you refresh us what exactly the Highland does? Yeah, he's $10 around,
right.
Per times the phase, right?
Yeah.
So in phase 2, it'll pay 20, right, to the charter and to the player.
Right. Okay.
And stacks up cash, and eventually you move all that money to one of your companies and have a train party, baby.
If you get it right at the start of the game and run it through till just before phase 7 starts, it'll probably have something like 250, maybe 300 quid on it. So that's a lot of money to slide into a company.
Yeah, for sure. The next one on my list, I feel like it doesn't get enough love because I think it's pretty cool.
I don't think it's super. Yeah, I don't think it's super understood, I think is the problem, because it takes a play or two for you to see it in action, for you to actually get it, right?
Yeah, the offshore tax haven.
Yeah.
Because it's basically a +1 to your cert limit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And that went through several evolutions of the design. One evolution between the first printing and the second printing of the rule book, I think. So,
I haven't noticed.
So when it was something I came up with probably towards the end of the development. So it's probably 2014 or 2015 when I thought of it. And we played it probably therefore for only a year, and pretty much only with my local group. So it didn't get massive playtesting, but it got playtesting, but not to a wide audience, I suppose. And in my group think, the idea that a share in the offshore tax haven stops you from being all sold out was seen as a good thing. But never has there been such controversy within the hobby. So now the ruling is that a share doesn't stop you being sold out.
Sure.
But in 1822 Canada, the offshore tax haven has the opportunity to accumulate money which it can spend on shares.
Oh.
It can then.
So that share payout goes on to it.
Yeah, so it obviously accumulates money because that's the way it works. But when in a stock round, once per stock round, it can buy a share if it's got enough money.
It can keep.
Um,
Wow.
Yeah,
I've not
So,
played CA.
okay, so that is an optional rule for it in 1822 plus. Now, so if you play with that rule, if it comes out early and buys a good share, then it can perhaps have 3 or 4 shares on it by the end of the game. But if you do that, that means that you're not getting the cash flow because you've put your share in there originally, that you're not getting the cash flow. So there's a checks and balance thing. And it depends when you want to start investing on it. We normally don't put shares into it until we're at full portfolio. But if you're playing with that optional rule, then putting a share into it earlier is a good idea.
Right.
And if you're playing with that rule, that it's worth more than if you're not. So the bid price will be higher.
The last one on my list is the private that allows you to level a town and put a plane track through it. And it seems like in our group, it's a critical private to our group think. For starting the London Northwestern and getting
absolutely. Get rid of Hartford.
Yeah.
You guys call it the dip dozer, I believe.
Yes.
On your side of the water. And it's great. Is it? It's Oxford, is it? Whatever.
Yeah. Whatever. Whatever. It's going to get leveled anyway.
Yeah. So, and it's
right above north of London.
Yeah, that's Hartford.
Yeah, I can't read either of those.
Yeah. No, that one's cool. But I will say that's not always the town that gets removed. In our games, sometimes towns do get removed. Other than that one, just depends on who bought it and how other things unfolded.
If you use it down by the English Channel, you can run a 2p from France to London.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's
get rid of that. There you go.
That's a very popular.
Absolutely. Chris is actually erasing
the doinks. Like, let's get rid of Coventry. Let's get rid of Oxford. Cool. But it's very interesting, and I think it can really help, especially if you let somebody get one of those and a 2p to be able to run London. That can be dangerous.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
Simon, any of the privates come to your mind that you'd like to mention or talk about?
Which one is it that allows you to move the tokens around, the charters around in a stack? Because I think that doesn't get very much love at all. I can't remember what it's called, but that can be incredibly useful. It's really situational, but it can be so useful.
Agreed. I have seen it used a couple of times.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get love, yes.
Right. So there's probably as much fun in sticking something at the bottom of the stack that somebody else wants as bringing something to the top that you want. But yeah, that's perhaps my favourite, other than the Highland, which I think is great.
Awesome. That sounds like something Nick would do. Move it to the bottom.
Yes. Very spiteful.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you talked about running a 2p if you get that town down by the English Channel, plowed under and everything, right? And so like that, those are great synergies. And one of, I think, the most amazing level of synergies is in this game is the way the miners come into the game, how they work potentially together, and how they get merged into companies. Because like I am a sucker for merger games. Okay, so
documented fact.
This game's got possibly the greatest maybe opinion, right? Merger mechanics in the game. I particularly love the options you have for paying the owner of the miners, in shares or cash or combination thereof. I don't know of any other game that has done that.
So I copied that. I copied it word for word out of 18 West.
Ah,
18 West.
Which we were commanded to play it, but we have not played it yet.
I think 18 West is David Hecht.
Yeah.
That's the only Hecht game I haven't played yet.
Okay, so I stole his TGVs to make my E-trains from 26. I stole his Granger Roads, as they're called in 18 West, for my mine merging mechanism. Awesome. I can't take any credit at all for 22.
Your credit is taking those ingredients and cooking a different meal.
Man. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The chef has to credit the farmer. It has to happen.
Two things I like about the way the miners work in this game is, one is when they're not purchased, they're going to remove trains from the game. And when you play with 1822 plus, there's even some more miners, and so there's even, as we've seen, more train pressure coming out of the game because. Go ahead.
Not really, because the miners still come out at the same pace. The extra miners really just mean that the chance of any particular miner coming out is slightly more diluted because you're perming one from 24 instead of one from 30. So if you want a particular miner, it's just slightly less likely to be there. I don't think it affects the train rush particularly.
I feel like we've run out of miners in the past.
Okay.
And 22 has more.
Surely, if you run out of miners, surely you're then into the permanent trains anyway. By then. I don't know that I've ever run it. I must have run out of miners. I'm sure I have. Yeah, I'm sure I have. It's just I haven't played 1822 for years. I can't remember.
For years. But that export mechanic, though, definitely keeps things moving, and especially early in the game when it's because miners are taking away L trains in quantity, So
so each OR there will be 4 or 5 L trains leaving the game or coming into play, leaving the engine shed,
and then it's the absolute rush to convert your 2s as fast as possible.
So that stack of 22 L trains looks like a really big stack, but it goes down pretty quick. Yeah. And there's 9-3 trains, they disappear pretty quick as well.
Yeah.
When you're playing
it. People are pushing.
Yeah.
Nice. So I the last thing I think about those miners that I really like, and Simon, tell me if you agree or disagree, but I feel like it's a mechanism that allows me to control my own risk and reward, because the more miners I have, I'm going to get, half the money. I'm going to be making money, but the more miners I have, then the more financial exposure I have, right? And so how can I get them consumed into my public companies?
Because your major can only absorb 1 miner per OR. And so miners are great, but you can fall over by having too many. And you get, rather than having the joy of going bankrupt and going to watch your favorite TV program on Netflix, you have to sit there with your debt spiraling. Yes. And deliberately taking 20 quid debt or something so you can fund a 3 train is brilliant. But when you find yourself taking hundreds of pounds of debt unintentionally, then that's
circle the toilet. But you're right. Small loans are a great tool. They're not painful. You arrange it to happen even.
And as a deliberate policy, it's
absolutely,
it's a way of leveraging your money. So it's a good thing.
Cool.
Last thing on my list on this point is just the epic feel, right? Because it's a big map. and there's little companies popping up all over, and they're just building these little spider webs of track, and eventually there's connections and all kinds of like that whole like epic feeling. I feel like I'm a history nut. I don't know very much about British railroad history, but I feel like I'm watching a retelling of British railroad history. All these little companies, making these big networks and becoming big companies. It's one of my favorite feelings.
Yeah. So on the epic side of the game, I'm with you. I love it because it is a big game and it does feel like it all comes together. On the railroad history thing, it is a game. It's not, it's not recreating or modeling historical development. Yeah, I mean they're all real railroads that really happened, but it's an abstraction.
It didn't happen in the order that they happen in our game.
No, and people get very upset, and it's one of my bugbears about 18xx games is that people they don't think that it's an abstraction. Sometimes they think it's a real representation of, well, they probably don't think that, but the way they talk about historical or geographical inaccuracies, you'd think that they didn't realize it was an abstraction. They thought it was a reenactment of history, and that gets my goat slightly.
I hear you.
Interesting.
There is one other thing, because you talked about it, the toilet spiral, and so the fact that there is no player elimination has caused our group to terminate games just because somebody is just not going to have fun for the next 5 hours.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought of a variant or anything that allows for player elimination? Because I feel like the game's not really over until the E-trains come out. You can be behind, but be building big track, and you get your E-train, and all of a sudden, boom, right? And so I feel like if somebody gets in a bad spot and we have to end the game, that's also unsatisfying because I missed that. Have you had any thoughts about any of that?
I don't like bankruptcy and player elimination, so no. Short answer.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I recognise the problem, but
I'm not saying it's a problem.
The player who's losing badly has got to just be miserable and suck it up. Enjoy the experience of playing the game. Learn, do better next time. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Some people, this goes back to the reason you play the game and philosophy of it. Some people win at all costs, and if they don't win, they're very disappointed.
Yeah.
To me, it's a leisure activity that I play for fun, and if I win, it's a bonus.
Yeah.
So losing or being in a totally untenable position, I'm still there. I'm still having fun. I'm still with my mates, moving the bits around on the board. It's still an experience. So, if I'm $5,000 in debt, what does it matter? I'm still having fun.
Fair enough.
So, so from that perspective, that's perhaps why I don't like elimination.
Sure. No, those are all good things. We usually only do that when there's new people at the table or inexperienced players and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right.
But when it's, 5 of us that have played the game 15, 20 times, that's just part of the game, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can imagine that 4-player game that you were drawn into, you did not win, and you were not in contention at the end of it, but you stuck it out. And I think that kind of formulated a lot of your game
because
view.
I was there experiencing a new thing and learning, and it was interesting and fun. Yeah.
See, I had the exact same experience, but mine was not fun and interesting. But I still came back because I'm like, I found the fun later. I just, at the time it was happening, I was just getting beat up and I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Should
All
we
right.
go to green?
I think we're ready for green. So green, we're going to bring on the green phase, and the green phase, little green phase. It'll be short.
Yeah,
It'll be brief. We're going to rust the 4 train rapidly. It's not going to last. Not long for this world. No soft rust on this one. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the scenarios and expansions for 22, because 22 itself I think is an amazing game, and I love it. And that was my first play, was playing 22 a lot. But then a little later on, Tony introduced me when we were sitting down playing with Mike out in Colorado, introduced me to MRS. So, and at this point, all I'd play was the big game, but to play MRS, same stuff you love, smaller playtime, smaller map, little tighter, a little more, knives and phone booths, maybe like a decent sized 2-person phone booth, maybe, but it's still got some sharp edges to it. So, what made you kind of come up and say, 22 is great, but maybe it's too much? How can we make this more of a weeknight game than a weekend game? Well,
exactly that. 22 is 6 or 7 hours, which is an afternoon, evening, whatever convention game, and I wanted it to be playable in an evening. So I was looking at solutions. So I came up with 1822 Lite, which is still sat in the box, up in the wardrobe, in development. And I've been working on that on and off for 8 years.
Okay.
far more off than on. But that's intended to be a quick version of 1822. But my local group nagged me to come up with a way of making 22 quicker. So I came up with 6 scenarios, short, medium, and long. One based on a region of the map and one based on the whole map. And basically they're intended to make the game start, or model the game starting 1 OR set further along. So the large regional scenario starts basically in SR2 and the medium starts in SR3. So to replicate that, all I did was make the trains a little bit cheaper to model as if the companies had a little bit of revenue from the first OR or second OR. So that's the only change. And the map's obviously cut off.
Right.
And so you're just missing out the first couple of ORs of play. On the small regional scenario, because of the cheapness of the trains, you find the 3s rusting the L's pretty much on the same OR, which gets it a little bit awkward. But in the medium, it works really well, and the tempo on it is just right, and it is smaller, but it reproduces everything. It works really well as a 2-player, and I think it's good. I think it's good with lower player counts. So if I was to sit down with 3 people, including myself, I might suggest the MRS. But if I was to sit down with 4, I would suggest the full game, just because I like bigger games and I prefer 22 to 22 MRS because it's a bigger game.
And you like that epic feel. We can, between the war games and Civilization, it's obviously something, and you baked it right into this cake too, so it's perfect.
Yeah, definitely, it's the epic feel. So the MRS to me is the same scale as, I guess, your typical 18xx game,
right?
Which is achievable in an evening if you play. Well, it depends how long your evenings are. But if you play at a reasonable tempo, you can start at 7 and you can finish. You can be in bed before midnight.
Right.
Yeah. So
OE can be an evening game in Sweden, right? Because
yeah,
I love,
Excellent.
Simon, that you called out the 2-player. I've played MRS 2-player many times.
hmm
And I mean, it totally works.
yes,
It's a fun experience, Yeah,
yeah, and
definitely recommended.
that's just by chance that it works as a 2-player, because
Mm.
I, as a rule, don't like 2-player games. So
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to achieve a 2-player 18xx.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of that has to do really with the privates, though, because I think they offer enough variability that, two people can have two completely different games. It's not, you do A, I do B. I'm not going to buy your company. Oh, wait, I have to buy your company because that's the only one. I think it helps give you another avenue to put that money, because you can put it into miners. You can put it into, the private companies, which I love. Yeah, makes sense. Cool.
18 and for 1822 plus, my group, we take the Highland Railway and and we put in the Canterbury, what is it, and Whitstable,
Yeah,
which is, that's the $5 version instead of the $10 version.
yeah.
But I love, that it adds 1822 plus has, there's more miners, so there's more spaces, that have a company starting with it on the map and everything, and there's a permanent L train, right? We talked about the 2 and the 5.
Yeah. So I fully endorse your approach to the Highland Railway, although I would not do it myself. You have the designer's approval to take that approach. Yeah, the permanent L train is it would be hilarious if it came out on the first OR, but the way I've written the rules, it can't. But I have also written in the do what the hell you like with the privates. I don't experiment and try it and see what works for you.
Cool.
Right on. I've also gotten to play the Northern regional scenario a couple times. In 2019 at Trax was the first time I got to play it, and I've played it a couple times since. And I like MRS, not it's over NRS, but like it's nice to just play on the other half of the geography sometimes too.
Yeah. So the NRS is something that Scott came up with.
Yeah.
It wasn't that wasn't me. He was looking at variety, I guess, and as you say, the other half of the geography. So he suggested that. We fiddled around with the map a little bit. We talked about the values of the companies, the cities that are on the red off board at the bottom.
At the bottom, yeah.
And they're way overpowered compared to the rest of the board, even more than 1822 is London centric. Yeah. The NRS is very it's very overweighted down to the bottom, but that's fine because the bidding mechanism allows for that. So it just just makes the game different. It doesn't make it unbalanced.
For sure.
Cool.
Self-balancing. That's what auctions can do.
Yeah, self-balancing. Yeah, and I've said the 1822 system, because it's pretty much auction driven. You can pick up the game concept and drape it over any country to create a new game any way you like. And so, you don't actually need to do a lot to it to make it work in any country.
That's a great segue, Chris, right? To Brown.
That's perfect. Because
22.
Right, because moving on to the Brown phase, it's discussing 22 as a system of play, not just, a single standalone game, because we saw that it actually started cropping up within its own game, right? Like within the 3 that we just talked about with the MRS and, the other 2. Yes, they are in the same box, but they are different games and how the actual gameplay and interaction works. So first off, part of the system is that 22 uses the small OE size tiles. Was that a conscious decision? Like, I love that tile size because it allows us to have, less of a table hog and bigger maps. Like, where did that kind of decision come from?
I think that was something that Scott did because I was using full size tiles on my game. So my game was bigger. Yeah, takes up a lot of table space.
It was truly epic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a piece of plywood epic there,
So yeah, I think that was simply Scott looking at production issues and thinking that the smaller tile size would be cheaper, lighter, smaller. There's lots of benefits. The disbenefit, I mean, I personally hate the small tiles because they're fiddly, and the disbenefit is that. But the practical benefits in terms of the weight of the box and the footprint on the table, it's a big benefit.
Cool. So how do you feel about 22 kind of now being a system, right? Like, there's derivative games.
It's a branch.
I think it's amazing. I mean, it's imitation is the biggest form of flattery, and 1822, as I keep saying, it's other people's ideas that I've welded together, and now people are taking that and dropping it in other places. So Bob and I, when we did 22 CA, Bob wanted to put 22 in Canada. Okay, that's great. He did most of the geography and the history and the company selection. And I think the bit I added was the scale difference. So the line up the middle of the map. Wait, so the hexes in the east are like 300 kilometers and the hexes in the west are 800 kilometers or something like that. So, there's quite a big scale difference. So,
but it's interesting because it kind of creates the same vibe as the North-South does in 22. You get the same thing East-West in Canada.
Yeah. And the rules include playing the two scenarios of just one board or just the other board, as well as the whole game. And then the city.
I wish I had a picture of the track that I ran in the West. That was just the dit just snaking around. Somebody left me alone out there, and I just went nuts with a freight train. It was so much fun to just add up all the dits because nobody was touching me out there.
So unrestricted. Yeah, nice. Yep.
Very fun. You were saying?
So Bob added the grain train. That was his idea to make the West more balanced. And I came up with the idea for the privates that control the city development. But apart from that, the game is pretty much core 1822.
Awesome.
Companies.
But I love the, and Tony, we just literally played 24 the other day. So we certainly love goods trains and grain trains and the ability to kind of, make that decision. I love having that tension point of like, oh, if I get it, I need to get the grain train because it's so much better for me. But I love that. Great ad.
And then there's Scott's publishing 1822 MX. What's your involvement in MX been?
So Scott said to me, I quite fancy trying 1822 in Mexico. And I said, that's a great idea, Scott, you go ahead. That was my involvement. So
Well, thank you for that involvement.
Yes.
So I can't take any credit for the development that Scott did from the 22 system to get to the Mexico, but the NDM that he's introduced, it is absolutely brilliant, and that is the thing. That's the trick I missed really with 1822, because that is fantastic.
Oh, it's really cool the way the NDM works.
Yeah, I haven't played that one, so I don't know.
Okay, so the NDM, I mean, the auctions give you a lot of decisions to make.
Mm-hmm.
And having the NDM that you can buy in amongst the auction phase causes so much extra mayhem. It's absolutely brilliant. If you're familiar with really nasty auctions, then the ability to buy a share of that and then sell it and jump back in, or buy shares in other people's companies is fantastic. Because in 1820 you can't sell a share until the company's operated, but you can sell NDMs. So you can really catch people out by investing your money in NDM and then selling it and jumping back in the stock round, and it causes mayhem, and it's absolutely brilliant.
Oh yeah.
And the NDM itself, the way it works, is great, but the way it interacts with the auction mechanism is awesome.
Another interaction of that is if those miners don't get bought, it becomes an NDM.
Yeah,
and
which is
token becomes a token, and then your investors can build track for the NDM investors.
Yeah,
and then a lot of games have nationalization of railroads. This has got privatization of it, and all those token locations go up for bid later in the game. So.
Yeah, no, they're all neat mechanisms. All of those things done with that. But my favourite is how it interacts with the auction. But yeah, it's brilliant. It's a thing of genius. That.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, when Scott made his prototype copies for sale, I got one, so we've been playing it. It's a really good 1822 based game.
Yes.
Right.
I'm looking forward to receiving the copy because it's
awesome.
They'll be coming soon.
Let's hope. Awesome.
Cool. Let's hope there's even more 22 system games coming up. That'd be great.
I agree. Still many continents to go. Excellent. So we kind of teased it a little earlier. So Tony, if you're done, what do you say we move on? All right.
Let's go to the gray phase. So the gray phase is what's in the works? Is there anything coming? I know you kind of mentioned it earlier. So now I'm like, my brain's just going, is it another 22? Is it another system? Is it what's going on, Simon?
So it's called 1866, and it's based in Western Europe. It's a little bit bigger than 22, but nowhere near as big as OE.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of, I'm pitching it a 7-8 hour game. So convention game or what, a day game, not a school night.
Right.
I guess it's themed around national companies controlling the board and public companies needing to own shares in the national company to be able to operate in their region. So
nice.
Regional operating rights is the one thing, and the other thing is there are no stock rounds.
Say what?
So
okay.
Because I mentioned earlier 1880 and 18OE. So 1880, with the way it's stock rounds jump in and interrupt operating rounds, I think that's brilliant.
Totally brilliant.
And OE, I love the scale of it. So it's kind of, I've reduced this OE scale, but I've upped the 1880 stock round craziness and got rid of stock round. So that's the plan.
Oh,
cool.
It's a teaser. We'll all be thinking, so how do you buy shares?
I was going to ask if 80 had any influence on things that are coming, because, that excites me, because I love both of these games. So to see a little bit of cross-pollination is going to be interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, well, it's playing those two that have made me think of 66, but unlike 22, where pretty much every rule was borrowed from another game, 66 is pretty much everything is my idea.
Okay.
So it might be dreadful. Yeah, if it's dreadful, I can really blame myself. But I think we've been playing it now for about a year and a half, and that is most of my board 17, because the development site of board 18 is board 17. Most of my time has been playing 1866 on that, and getting through quite a few games, and developing, fine-tuning. So awesome. I'm hoping that sometime next year I'll be able to give it to Scott and say, right, make some playtest versions of this. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's progressing, and we're nearly at the end of the year, aren't we? So
my mind is still blown from no stock rounds. Like I don't I can't even put the pieces together in my brain. Like, how does that even work? So, but I can't wait to find out one day, sir.
Yeah, there you go. There's a teaser.
There you go.
Excellent.
I'll tell you after you've stopped recording the podcast.
Okay, dude. I will keep the secret. I promise. Oh my God.
You are good at that. So awesome. Do you still have like a lot of irons in the fire? Do you develop in parallel any other games? I mean, you talked about 22 Light being an on again, off again thing. Do you keep a lot of things going, or do you just have like the tablet of ideas and once one's done, you move to the next?
That sounds like I'm a proper games designer. I've got a few ideas in my head, and occasionally they come to something.
There you go.
There's no process. There's no program. There's just I mean, I'm really enthused by 1866, and I'm really working hard on it.
Cool.
1822 Light, I'm really unenthused by it, and it's far more off than on. I was quite intrigued by the City of the Big Shoulders, that 18xx Euro game that came out, and I backed the Kickstarter for 18 Dortmund with the beer things, which are obviously both Euro influenced. So I'm also thinking about a Euro 18xx game based on the London Underground, and I've got some ideas, but I keep coming up with ideas while I'm cycling around and then forgetting them, as we discussed. So I've come up with a number of ideas, and I've forgotten them and not written them down. So every now and again, I come up with another idea and try to write it down somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm making a note here that says, for Christmas, buy Simon a voice recorder that he can take on cycle rides. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you have them on your phones, don't you? So, it's
that's true.
Difficult.
The ability's there.
Nowadays, it's really easy, but maybe one day I'll get around to being more sensible, more organized.
Awesome.
Great. Well, we look forward to that, and I can't wait to see what 66 has to offer down the road. It sounds pretty exciting.
Totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Simon, for taking this time with us today. This has been a complete blast getting to know you better, and getting to know, I just love finding out like all the little tidbits about design and whatnot. So it's just been a blast for me. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks to you. It's been great.
Just echo what Chris said, man. It was great to get to meet you today and get to know you a little bit and talk about fun times that this game 1822 has provided for me and my friends. So thank you.
So at this point, we're going to sign off so we can get secret information, and we're gonna see you next month on Wheel Tapping. Wheel Tapping is brought to you by Game Toppers. Upgrade your next experience with a great Game Topper or Matt from Game Toppers. Check them out at GameToppersLLC.com. A quick thank you to all the patrons and people who support the show by sharing it. Thank you for your support, and we appreciate everything you do to keep the show going.
Punchboard Media, where we all
bring something
to the table.
pull up a chair.